Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 164 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel, and we're walking, and we're stopping, Rowald.
I voted. Did you?
Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew. Well, just vote your conscience, you chicken shit lame ass Zumwalt.
What? How did you... You took my quote too? I'm gonna do something completely different now. She's great. She's really exotic. She's a princess. She's Polynesian. Well, half Polynesian and half American. She's Amnesian.
Well, this is really funny. Third, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom. She's Polynesian. Well, half Polynesian and half American. She's Amnesian. Haggis.
You guys have said yourself a million times. If this podcast had been in everyone's ear 15 years ago, this country does not go see The Core.
That's true. Fourth, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. Your boss is the chief executive of Fantasyland. Fine.
On tonight's episode of The West Wing, Icebox from Little Giants learns how to play the trombone.
All right. Let's poke the monkey. Find out what we're discussing this month.
Ladies and gentlemen, love-struck world leaders and dapper democratic doppelgangers, welcome to the main event. Tonight, we're polling the populace to decide the best presidential picture. Who will get to write an inauguration speech? And who will get hung out by a chair? In the first corner, from 1995, written by Aaron Sorkin, directed by Rob Reiner, starring Martin Sheen, Annette Bening, and Michael Douglas, the American President. In the second corner, from 1993, written by Gary Ross, directed by Ivan Reitman, starring Frank Langella, Sigourney Weaver, and Kevin Kline. Dave!
All right. Well, I just remember my mom and dad having The American President on repeat in the VCR for some reason. It seemed like once, maybe twice a week, they were watching The American President, and I don't know why. But they loved it. And I actually hadn't seen Dave until, I want to say the early 2000s. I actually was the first time that I watched it. But I enjoy both these films, and I want to know what you guys think. I was just going to say all I could think of the whole time was, no, Dave, there are no raises, Dave. The whole movie. All right, let's move on to our first round, which is writing. Oh, nope. That's the wrong cue.
What?
It's the wrong cue. It's my fault. We'll just ding that one, and you guys go ahead.
Oh, how am I going to top that? What the hell?
Just do better. That's all you have to do to top it.
All right. Well, Mike, the reason your parents had this in their VCR on repeat, American President, is because it's an amazing script. Aaron Sorkin is a very gifted writer, and he has a particular way of encapsulating the American spirit and what, like, kind of our hopes and dreams about, what we can be as a country. And American President, it really feels like it's like West Wing, the movie, that then they kind of turned into West Wing, the series. There's a lot of overlap in the themes and obviously the location, and even some of the actors that are in American President went on to star in West Wing. Most notably, obviously, Martin Sheen, who went on to play President Jed Bartlet on the West Wing. We'll get into this later, but the directorial style, even in West Wing, with the walking the halls and having conversations in motion, what is going on, is all carried over to the West Wing. And so I really like Aaron Sorkin's work. I always seek it out when he puts something out. His TV show, The Newsroom, that he did after West Wing, is exceptional. Molly's Game, about the poker, what do you want to call her? The poker gambling queen, Molly Bloom, is a fantastic movie. When people say what's a movie that hooks you in 5 minutes, Molly's Game will hook you in 5 minutes, and that's all thanks to Aaron Sorkin's exceptional writing. Dave, on the other hand, is also really well written. It's by Gary Ross, who did Big and Pleasantville and Hunger Games. He's also written some scripts that carry a lot more weight than they appear on the surface. I think, it's weird doing this episode at this point in November. I don't know. It was a lot more hopeful, and I don't know. It seemed like a good idea a couple months ago, and it's really hard for me, without getting into the politics of it. It was really hard for me to watch these movies after the election and not be jaded and just frustrated with are these fantasy films? I mean, does this kind of, positive attitude and the work together, and at one point he has an 84% approval rating, like that will never happen ever again. And so it's just, I think that the dialogue in both of them is really well done. I think American President gets a little bit more credit for kind of putting the realities and the difficulties of running the government up front and center. Dave is a lot more idealistic about how easy and simple things are. That running a government is like running your household checkbook, and that's just not true. And so I think American President scores some extra points with me just because it does kind of deal with the realities that politicians are up against.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, minus all of the other great movies that these two have written, which are fantastic, the one thing I felt with Dave is that the writing brought out this, well, as you could say, maybe fantasy or science fiction, but it brought out this hopefulness of, yeah, they made it seem really easy to run a country, but they also built this magic and this light that there are these people that still care so deeply about other people and the country and how they're going to make the world a better place, and they're seeing it from a different perspective than a politician. And I think that was very much conveyed strongly in Dave, with just the way that how he comes from a very basic life and he slowly works his way into more of just the regular everyday person and less of that business contractual politician that the actual president in the movie was performing. He was bought, he was paid for, he was a politician, he never smiled and everything. And when they bring Dave in, it's like this whole new light. So I thought that was really well conveyed and brought in to making it a little more lighthearted. Because I agree, Tom, the American president, although being a fiction, I think has a more realism and a more grounded approach to what I believe is more how you would actually have to do it and how it actually runs, even with the side story and the romance going on. So.
Yeah, so at some point in my life, I caught something Aaron Sorkin wrote and disliked it immensely, and so have been avoiding him forever. And now, after watching The American President, I have realized that I have missed probably quite a lot of good art because of that. He is a master of the walk and talk, the creation of tension and dispersion of tension, like writing characters that feel heightened but realistic. I think he wrote a very compelling and interesting portrait of the reality of being an American president and some of the pressures and things you have to deal with it and all the things you juggle. It's almost like a police procedural, but political. It's like a political procedural movie. But yeah, absolutely loved it. The dialogue is wonderful. We'll get into it in acting, but Michael Douglas is incredibly presidential, I think, and comes across really well, in no small part due to the acting and all of the backstory and things given to the characters in the story. Dave, on the other hand, is a bit more whimsical and out there. They're more caricatures than they are characters. One of the most unrealistic things I think about the movie is that at some point, Dave says he does impressions, multiple, and if you're the exact twin of the president, you do an impression. You don't do impressions. He's not Shecky Green or Red Fox on the weekends. I don't know why I chose Red Fox. That was a weird one. He's not doing Bill Cosby, but also the fact that people believe the president is opening a car dealership by riding in on a pig is libelous and slanderable, and he probably would be taken out by a sniper doing stuff like that. The romances in the movies, the one in Dave is very, very shallow, and it happens very fast. She's basically entranced by a man who will pay any attention to her, and then it just turns out that he's also a pretty good dude. It feels a little bit more realistic and organic in The American President. The issue I had with both the films, I think, is maybe a cynical one, is that they end on hopeful, happy notes. And I guess that's just been beaten out of me. I'm waiting for the postscript thing that says, Michael Douglas's character lost by 20 points in every state, despite giving a great speech. Also, I will say the villains, especially in The American President, are basically non-existent. Richard Dreyfuss exists in the movie for like 10 minutes. And other than being an asshole, you never really get too big of an idea of what threat he poses to the country or to the presidency or anything like that, with the exception of it's now fair game to attack his character because he's dating again, which I think is interesting, but we're way past the pale on that now. It seems unrealistic looking at it back. The bad guys in Dave, Frank Langella, who the only way this, an easy way to make Dave better is just to let him wear his Skeletor makeup from Masters of the Universe and just not say anything about it. But yeah, he's kind of a one-note crony. And then the actual president is just a scheming scumbag. The absolute worst thing about him is that he would choose to have sex on the floor instead of the nice comfy bed. I think that's the unforgivable part of what he's done. So, yeah, I think
they started in the bed.
Yeah, I know, but maybe I'm just old, but come on, that's what the bed's for.
Maybe they licked all the way down from the bed to the floor. It's in the song.
Jesus Christ! I'm not licking the side of the bed. I'm not licking the floor. I'm not getting out of bed. I'm not. No.
It's Laura Linney, so
Yeah, I'd be willing to do some weird things for Laura Linney. But I think at least he was on top. I'm not getting on bottom on the hard floor because I'm not getting up. But these are just old man complaints.
I would agree that when you say that the villains in Dave, the whole time reminded me of the twisting mustache guy, and he's like, "Ha, I've got him now. Oh, we're gonna put this plan off on this guy." Like that's all I could think of the whole time.
Both these movies got incredible, I think probably Oscar nominated or winning actors to play the vice president, which I think is funny. You got Ben Kingsley and Martin Sheen as your vice presidents. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think one of my things about the American president, and this is just a personal preference, but I'm not a huge fan of the really quick back and forth banter type stuff where they're going back and forth really quickly, and it's hard to keep up with the dialogue and what the hell are you talking about? This is too much, and it was interesting to see the walk and talk in the American president because wow, this has become so familiar now, even with I think other genres of things police procedurals and that kind of stuff. They're always walking up and down the halls talking to each other but one of the things that really stuck out to me for the American president was the issues that they were talking about, that the president needed to deal with, gun control, various other issues. And I'm like, those are the exact same issues that we are talking about and debating about and making decisions about today. They have not changed. Climate, yes, there were climate issues. It hasn't changed much. And it made me want to thank Congress for basically doing nothing for 30 years. Because it's literally the same stuff that we're talking about today that they're talking about in this. But it also made it very real to me. And it made me feel like, they're not just making up issues, to give the president some sort of challenge or something in these. It felt very real. And Dave, I enjoyed Dave. It was a little bit, in many ways, it was very implausible that there was somebody who looked basically identical to the president and could get away with impersonating him, even in front of his wife, at least for a brief period of time. It's a little bit of a far-fetched concept, but I thought it was well written and I enjoyed it. I found it very entertaining. Not very plausible in some ways, but entertaining nonetheless.
All right. Do you guys have anything else to add for writing?
I would like to say that in Dave, if he is not an identical twin separated at birth, he has the same penis as the president. Just very strange.
Does he though? Does
they mention it? No, because he says, "When's the first time you knew?" And she said, "Oh, when we got in the car together." And he said, "I thought it was the shower." And she goes, no. So that made
Because
me.
Yeah.
Well, she was saying, I think she was just saying, no, I already knew at that point.
Oh, so then she looked at a man who she knew was an imposter's penis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had
Or
a
Well, I
nice,
mean, that opens
maybe,
up a whole new can of worms.
and maybe
Maybe
it
sure.
was better. Maybe it was a
Or-
better penis.
Maybe it was smaller. You know,
Yeah,
and
She was like
"Woo."
indication of her feelings about his penis. And I think
remember
that's
this
the
being
greatest thing that they left on the table.
You know,
I don't generally advocate for movies to be longer, but I think they should spend 15 minutes or so.
longer.
Shorter, thicker. I don't generally like my movies uncircumcised.
thicker. I like a thicker movie. Yeah.
Thicker movie.
Girthy. I want the writing to be girthy, and
Yeah, give me a chode movie.
You know,
70 minutes
rigid.
long,
Now, Gabe,
70
you're-
millimeter.
Gabe, you're the one that always complains that the things are too long and they need to be shorter for you to enjoy them. So
yes, I still believe that. You know, if
Are
the
we
movie's
talking
too
about
long, it
movies
can be
or-
painful.
Sometimes I've heard that it's not the length, it's the width of the movie that really matters.
You know, but people's attention spans are so short. People can't stick around for a thick plot anymore.
yeah,
No.
That was perfect.
Well, my work here is done.
thank you for the detail.
Totally derailed.
All right, let's put it to a vote.
Penis smack.
Tom.
We're gonna go American President.
All right. Kyle.
Can I vote for Penis Smack, where we just debate full male frontal nudity in movies? American President by a mile.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, American president.
All right. And Andrew.
Yeah, American president.
All right. You know, Tom, you kind of
Got a landslide happening.
that it felt like a fantasy. You know, looking back at both of these movies, you know, you called Dave more of a fantasy. I feel like both of them are more fantasy.
100%.
You know, at least the American President, you feel like hopeful. You're like, oh, if we could only get someone like this in there that would, and it's like, well, you'll never see anyone like that in there. You know, it's
Look,
it's very fantastical.
Yeah, it felt hopeful a month ago, but
Right.
They both
Yeah.
were very fantastical, though.
Yes.
I just I mean,
And
last summer I took my kids to DC and we did everything, and it was an emotional trip, and I love American history and everything, and that is all of that is gone. I could not fucking care less at this point. So
I didn't know we were doing science fiction this month. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it seems like there's this idealism, and I think maybe we should save this for overall. But there is this idealism that goes with these movies that I think is absent in at least has been recently in modern politics. But we can talk about that later.
And also we're looking at a pre 9/11 world from a post 9/11 world too. Like that.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Jesus Christ, you have to bring that up too. My God, get a rope.
Sorry, you know we
now.
All right,
we should have a disclaimer on this episode.
Don't forget
depressing.
COVID.
Oh yeah, COVID.
God.
Jesus Christ.
Pre and post COVID.
God, I'm glad I'm done with my round.
All right. For writing, Aaron Sorkin's first draft of The American President was 385 pages long, which he delivered to the studio in a shopping bag.
What the fuck?
Gary Ross said he was very unhappy with an early draft of Dave. Despite being late in delivering the script and short on money, he started over from scratch and had to take out a second loan on his house to finance the next draft.
Yikes.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, one quick thing about the writing. I did like the twist at the end of Dave. I liked how they I was like, how are they going to get him out of this, ruse and let him go back to his normal life? And I did kind of like the twist at the end. I thought that was pretty clever, honestly.
Yeah, it was. All right. Second round. Acting.
Yes, let's start with Dave. Kevin Kline is very charming. He's funny, witty. He doesn't play a very convincing bad guy. I didn't think he did. He played an all right good guy. Sigourney Weaver is kind of underused in this movie. Frank Langella's got one note, and that is be a cartoon villain. Basically, be Richard Nixon or Richard Nixon crony. And then the other guy, who was the other guy that was on his staff? I think he was the one who went on to be in Veep. He's played like someone in a White House like 50 times. Like,
oh, you're talking about Kevin Dunn.
Done.
Okay, yeah. So, that guy is like in every movie as someone in the White House. But, it was kind of corny. It was kind of obviously not very realistic in points. I think they were going for a more fantastical, lighthearted sort of film. But when you contrast it against The American President, where I feel things are pretty grounded in a lot of places, and like we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of issues in that film that are being dealt with, that we're still dealing with today, and are incredibly important to the people living in this country. But it's just, I don't know. It's apples and oranges a little bit, because I feel like one is attempting to be a more realistic portrayal of the life of an American president and throwing in a love, I almost said love triangle, throwing in a, let me see, how do I want to put it? A love story. That's the words I want. And then it's also the Dave is sort of this, how you want to put it? It's almost like a Freaky Friday movie where he switches places with someone else. And it, I don't know, just works out too conveniently. And I didn't buy Kevin Kline for a lot of it. I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. I thought the acting was much, much better, and the cast list was much deeper in The American President. Although I will say Ben Kingsley gives a very good, 3 to 5 minutes of screen time. Weird to hire him for that, but interesting, I suppose. I think they're both okay, but I think The American President is better.
Yeah, I thought actually there were pretty good performances all around in these. I actually like Kevin Kline, and I thought it was interesting for him to basically play two different characters in a way. And I thought he did. I thought he did pretty well with that. Playing somebody who's like manipulative and calculating and uncaring, and then also somebody who's kind of like naive and more thoughtful and caring. And I enjoyed his performance in this. I like Sigourney Weaver. I think she's a good actress, but I've never really gotten into her as a leading lady personally myself. But that's just me, maybe. I thought Michael Douglas was really good. It's really interesting that we see these people, and again, maybe this is something we can cover in overall, but we see these people and these actors, even Kevin Kline, seem in many ways to be more presidential to me than actual presidents, some of them. And it's really interesting to see them. And I thought Michael Douglas was very presidential. I thought he really played that role well. He was confident and decisive and secure. And he's the kind of person that you want to be president. But then again, the flip side of that is, they have all their lines written for them, and it's like, they are practiced in these, delivering, speeches and monologues and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's no wonder that we find them to be charismatic and charming. Annette Bening, I thought was good. She might be another one where I'm not always really into her as a leading lady, but it's just me. That's just my personal opinion on that. But I thought a lot of the performances in The American President were pretty strong. What did you guys think of Michael J. Fox in that role? What did you think of him?
I always like Michael J. Fox. So
he's great. I mean, yeah. I was just wondering what you guys thought in that particular role. I mean, like
it's a setup for Spin City. Like he plays the same role in Spin City.
He brings like the passion and naivety of someone who's like new to politics.
Yep.
And maybe kind of idealistic.
Right. Very idealistic. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, I think you mentioned, how these movies, we look at them through the lens of what's going on in modern politics. And I'll get to this when it comes time to do our recommendations. But I saw something in another film that I think I realized after watching these movies and watching the things that have been going on in the world lately. And that is, if you find someone who really wants power, they are the person who should not be given that power. Right. So if you are struggling and you want that and you're like desperate for it, that's a pretty good sign generally that you're not suited to it. And you will do bad things with it. So yeah, just that. I'll get to that later. But I found that like, Michael Douglas is juggling and handling the parts of being the president. His real what he's lacking in this film is like the gumption to go on the attack. And he's trying to be diplomatic. And I think he plays that restraint really well. I think Michael J. Fox is interesting in the movie because he's very different than a lot of other characters. But Richard Dreyfuss is really given one note. I mentioned Frank Langella being like a caricature. I think Richard Dreyfuss is pretty much the same. Like he's given nothing to do except for be like blustery. And I think he says like, my name is something, something, and I'm running for president like 8 times. It was like the most thing he says in the movie. So just strange. Like feel like they couldn't nail all the parts. They nailed some parts to the stories and the scripts, but then they faltered in other areas, which I think, holds these back from being like truly great.
He's been chasing sharks for so many years. This was he didn't know what to do. He went straight to politics. So,
I will say that is one of the faults of Aaron Sorkin early on is that he was so quick to stereotype the other side and the GOP and Republicans in general, and just they're the bad guys and they're evil, and rather than take the time to like figure out exactly what they're after, and flesh out those characters a little bit more. He did just kind of make them evil and kind of flat. And I mean, I don't think that's anything to do with what happened last week, but at the same time, it's like, maybe if we weren't so quick to just stereotype and kind of got into it and figured out what was going on, we'd be better off. So there you go.
Yeah, I would say, Gabe, I agree that Sigourney Weaver is a fine actress. Never really been a hot leading lady. Same with Annette Bening. She is a fine actress. She just is not like somebody I look at and go, wow, that's, I don't know, just different opinions of it. I think they played their roles really well. Sigourney Weaver's really good at playing that hard, stern bitch character with a little bit of a lightness to her. And I think she does that really well. So she makes it, I would say, believable in that sense. So I would say that I enjoyed her performance, but not for, she's a good looking lady. She's okay. I guess.
Yeah, and that's terrible to say, to judge her on her appearance, but that's the way I've often felt. But did you notice when Well, no, really though. I'm not
she's judging
never
her.
Been.
I'm not judging her acting by her appearance. She's a fine actress.
No, she's a great actress. Yes.
She doesn't. It's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Did anybody else notice when Annette Bening was dancing, how ripped her back was? She looked like. I was like, holy shit, she's been like lifting. She was ripped. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Did anybody else notice that, or is that just me?
Yeah, that
must just be you, yeah.
That must be just me. I don't know.
You better watch out, or Dick Tracy's gonna pistol whip you.
That's true.
About his woman.
You are talking about
might,
this lady.
He might. I was saying good stuff. She was ripped.
All right. Do you guys want to add anything else to the acting category?
No, but I thought of a really great crossover from American President to The Game. Just so you know.
Just real quick, I wanted to point out that Michael J. Fox was next to another president in Designated Survivor. He came on, I think, season 2 for Designated Survivor. And
they made 2 seasons of that show?
They made 3 seasons of that show.
Jesus Christ.
And I
remember when
felt,
Kiefer Sutherland could lead a show?
Yeah.
I do. I really enjoyed that show. Like I binged watched it last winter, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. But once again, it plays into the trope of most movies that feature a president. Everything that an American would want their president to stand for, act, down the line. And that's what these movies play into, and countless other movies and TV shows play into.
I do want to, real quick, 2 actors. I don't know. Did we mention Ving Rhames at all?
We did not mention Ving Rhames.
I thought Ving Rhames and Charles, we talked about the bench on American Presidents is about a lot deeper, but I thought Ving Rhames and Charles Grodin were both exceptional additions to Dave. And it was fun seeing, Ving Rhames before he got into the Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah.
Right?
Does Dave look like a bitch?
And I always loved Charles Grodin. Like I don't know why. I love Charles Grodin.
This movie was missing a Beethoven. They needed to have a big sloppy dog.
It's funny you bring that up. I was going through all the trivia, and I remember there was this whole, well, this actor and this actor appeared in this movie together. This actor and this actor, and then it went through like 3 or 4 actors and directors. Relations, like children or something like that, all played with Charles Grodin in Beethoven. I'm like, really? You guys sat down and went through all that just to get a Beethoven trivia in here? I almost put it on my list, but yeah.
Well, and Franklin Jella, we were saying he was a bit of a caricature. But he still had presence, and he still seemed kind of menacing, and I kind of enjoyed his performance in these. There was a point where I don't remember, he was having a party at his house, and then I can't remember exactly what happened, but then everybody leaves, and he's sitting there, and his eyes are like literally like vibrating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of like that. It's a little, it's a little over the top, but he did come across to me as somebody who could be threatening and intimidating, and I enjoyed his performance in it too.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Kyle.
This American Life. Sorry, The American President.
All right. Gabe.
I think I'm going to go with Michael Douglas and The American President.
All right. Andrew. You're muted. There you go.
I know. I'm on the fence with this one just because Kevin Kline does such a fantastic job playing 2 parts and his kind of goofy.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
But Michael Doug, the cast in American President is just stellar. So I'm gonna go with American President.
All right. And Tom.
I'm gonna have to go with Dave.
Oh,
The Danny Boyle check.
Yep,
clear.
there we go.
For fucking sake, are you serious?
Sending another check.
Are you serious?
I can switch my vote to Dave too if you like, Tom. I was right on the fence.
No.
He doesn't
I was
split
going to vote
checks
for
with
Dave no matter
anyone.
what happened. It's fine. It's fine. Yes,
According-
Danny, I took care of it.
According to Ivan Reitman, Warner Brothers
he was
wanted a
there.
box office star to play the dual lead role in Dave. And one executive suggested Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh, Lord.
I want you to think
If it was about a
that real
governor,
quick.
maybe.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How would they explain that he's eligible for the American
Exactly.
presidency?
And how could they? How could there be two people who looked like
They look
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
exactly like Arnold.
They did it in Twins.
Right?
You're right,
They looked
right.
exactly
Yeah.
alike in
They
Twins.
That would be hilarious.
It's true.
Same.
Danny DeVito plays one, and yeah.
Early
Never
version.
mention it. Just the whole movie. Everybody acts like they're identical twins.
That would actually be pretty damn funny. Early versions of The American President depicted President Andrew Shepard as a military veteran and former special ops agent. Rob Reiner discussed the lead role with Bruce Willis and Steven Seagal before Sorkin's rewrites transitioned
yes.
Shepard to a more academic character.
Steven Seagal.
Could you imagine Seagal with the ponytail?
Yeah, you know he ain't
Oh,
got that
that's-
ponytail. And he's got to get
that's
Sorkin
ridiculous.
dialogue out.
Yeah, exactly.
No fucking way.
He just goes
Yeah,
around
Jesus.
snapping everyone's necks.
Take
That mo-
82. Okay, so we're gonna put it right here for real on the teleprompter. Just read your lines.
Oh,
When we rewrite this movie,
I'm not
where,
sure he
like,
can read.
the president has to like defend the White House.
White
Like
House.
Richard Dreyfuss and all his goons come, and I got to defend the White House.
Isn't that what is it? White House down or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I thought you guys would get a kick out of those.
That doesn't even seem realistic. Like really, like you would seriously consider Steven Seagal to play the American president?
Wow.
Ridiculous.
All right, let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
Oh boy. Well, these are two good directors. It's going to be a tough decision, but I really think that Rob Reiner with The American President really kind of pulls off the Sorkin kind of. He pulls off the writing. He puts it together cleanly and concisely. Like I said, I'm personally not a fan of the really quick banter between the characters because sometimes I miss stuff. I guess I'm getting old. I can't hear everything, and got to have the subtitles on and all that jazz. But I think Rob Reiner does a really great job of pulling off those scenes. And I don't know if we have any idea when the first kind of walk and talk kind of thing appeared, but this could be one of the early ones where they're walking down the halls and discussing political issues and going back and forth between topics and that kind of thing. And I think it's well shot and well edited and very competently directed. But the same could be said, I think, in many ways about Dave and Ivan Reitman. I think it's very competently directed. I think it handles a lot of the tonal changes pretty well, where it's kind of funny and sometimes kind of serious, and I think it's very competently put together. I'm not sure that the cinematography to me was as good as The American President, but I don't know. I thought it was a well done movie. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I thought they were both pretty competently directed. I mean, Yeah, I mean, the cinematography in American President was probably a little better, but I mean, Dave's wasn't bad. There were some really nice shots in Dave, particularly the one when he's walking off from the hospital at the end.
Yeah,
there's a really nice shot.
Yeah, into the kind of darkness with the light behind it there.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, there's shots like that in both movies. It seems like, although I mean, House of Cards kind of fix this, but it really seems like it's hard to do really good cinematography in the White House or on a White House set. There's not, there's not all of the you know the tans and beige backgrounds and stuff. It just doesn't seem to lend itself really well to really interesting shots. But
there's red, white, and blue there too.
There is, and those, I mean, yeah, there is that as well. So I mean, I don't know. It seems it's interesting that they're both not, but I mean they're like romantic comedies. I mean, they're not supposed to have these really pretty cinematic shots in them.
I did find it interesting that they proved National Treasure correctly with the underground tunnels coming from the White House that open up into the courtyard. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I have. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I have a Rob Reiner story I was going to tell, but we can keep talking about the movies you want. So.
Okay. Yeah, Dave is, adequately shot. I think there's nothing super fancy or well done or mind blowing or anything in it. American President is, I think, a pretty looking movie. I think they did a great job shooting the White House, making it look presidential, giving you a sense of grandeur, but Michael Douglas always seemed at ease there, despite whatever he was dealing with. I think they handled, there's a lot more camera movement. There's a lot more of the walking and talking. There's a lot more of that stuff. And they do a lot of interior, exterior shots, look really nice. Dave's cinematography is fine. I think as far as directing, you also have to talk about what you get out of the script and what you get out of the actors. And I think in American President, they really wring all the Sorkin-ness out of the script they can get. While really leaning into the actors' strengths and their abilities to getting the best performances out of them. I thought they did a great job getting Michael Douglas's performance as a president. I think Annette Bening was really well directed in her actions and choices, and it all felt very kind of natural and realistic. I got to give it a lot of credit for that. Dave didn't feel quite as polished or as good there. I agree with you. The White House can sometimes not be the most interesting place to shoot, but I think they did a great job in The American President. There's also quite a lot of shots of like dinners and stately events going on and things like that. I think they handle really well. I think they just get great performances. They get like the best they can get out of a lot of these actors, and I think they deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, I would say that with like Dave, what Ivan actually got out of the actors was, we've said it a couple of times tonight, a little more of that whimsical, a little more of that romantic comedy. When he first sits down in the stateroom and they have all the cardboard cutouts of all the congressmen sitting in the chairs, like I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that's probably not a thing. Like there was just some of that whimsical goofiness, lightheartedness that I felt that he really portrayed well in telling that story, that this isn't quite as serious of a political drama, but there is some of that serious undertone that goes on later in the story. And I feel that he pulled that out and still made the movie fun. And then, of course, the flip side with American President, just that very strong, it feels more like a political drama, and there's a little bit of a side story with his daughter and with this romance that potentially is looking like to other people that she's basically sleeping to get her agenda or sleeping with him just to get her agenda pushed through and things like that. So I think both conveyed their story well without necessarily going over the top, because sometimes you can get into those romantic comedies where they go a little over the top and it just gets so goofy that you're just like, this is this is just silly at this point. And I think they both write a really fine line. And Dave did a really nice job of keeping that lightheartedness while still telling the story that they wanted. Whereas The American President, I feel they kept that line a little bit straighter, but they still conveyed a little bit of a lightness to it of, the president is a real person. He's not just the president of the United States. He's also a human being. He's just a guy before he was president, he was just a guy. And I feel that he got that out of Michael Douglas as I'm a stern, strong president, but at the same time, I'm a person too. He has all those awkward moments where he tries to order flowers, or he's trying to find her, phone number, and he tells somebody to look it up, and she's like, "How'd you get this number?" He's like, "I don't know, like the FBI, maybe the CIA." There is some of that lightheartedness that they got out of Michael Douglas, and not just that stern, strong character that he plays a lot of because he's really good at it, but he had some of that in there. So I feel that it was relatively balanced in what they got out of them to tell their story.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the magic of both these movies, is that it does humanize something that feels really far from us. And both of them, do kind of reiterate that these are just people. And a lot of, especially with Dave, it's if you were in this situation, what are some of the, I would have trouble remembering the members of the cabinet and where they're sitting around the table, but that's something that you'd have to learn. And the perks that come with the job, he hits all the ones that that we'd want to do if we were ever in that situation, and he's just enjoying it. So,
well, and I think at the end when in Dave, when he is addressing Congress, and one of the things he says is, he was elected. Well, he was actually hired to do a job in a sense. And I felt that was an interesting concept of looking at the way the American president is portrayed. Is everyone just, looks at it as it's an elected official, and his character definitely looked at it at that. But also I was hired by you in a sense to do a job. And I felt that was a really interesting take on that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's coming from the
working class,
that wasn't,
and never was political.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
all right, are you guys done?
Perfect timing.
Done talking about directing. I just wanted to point out Rob Reiner knows how to Sorkin because he directed A Few Good Men before he did The American President, and Sorkin wrote the script for A Few Good Men.
And A Few Good Men is, a pretty lighthearted comedy too. So
right.
It's
yeah. Well, while you guys were talking, I was looking through both of their catalogs of what they've done, and Rob Reiner seems to have the most diverse. Like there's drama, there's comedy, there's, and he kind of swings back and forth. And Reitman is very much on the comedy side. Mm-hmm. But while you guys were talking, I was kind of thinking about it, just looking through, and it's like, well, Reitman kind of gives the actors space to let them go. Right? Like just look at all of his film work that he's done. He just kind of sets camera. He goes, okay, in my mind, this is the frame. Do what you want. Have fun with it. And where Reiner is, I'm not saying that he's strict and, whipping people on set, but it seems to me that there's more preciseness in that. He tells the actors, this is, I know this is what you're bringing to it. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I would like you to do. Where maybe Reitman kind of gives them, if you look at the framing, he kind of gives them more latitude. If you just look at the different styles, and that's just me, and I'm probably talking out of my butt.
Well,
like
he probably
Ace Ventura.
has, but he probably has to a little bit. I mean, when you're doing like the walk and talks and stuff, there's probably very specific beats and there's very specific spotting that you have to do not only for camera but for talking points, for all the other things that would go on in making that successful. Because I've seen walk and talks that are a jumbled mess. It's worse than a Marvel fight scene, and you have no idea where anybody is. You're crossing 180s, and it can just become a mess. And so I think you would need to have a little bit more structure in a situation like that versus the Dave, where it's a little more open.
Right.
So can I ask, is that why Arnold actually is in Dave?
Probably.
Okay.
Because what was it? Reitman did Twins.
Well, I was just curious if they were thinking about him being the Dave character.
Oh.
And then they were like, well, we've got him for a day.
Right. But, also, back then, Arnold had his, what was it? Get Out, On the Move program or whatever it was for kids, just to get them out of the house. So that might have been part of it. But yeah, sure. I mean, he did what? Twins, Kindergarten Cop. Sorry, I'm looking at it right now.
Yep.
And Junior.
Oh, yeah, Junior.
Yeah. So, I mean, probably very good friends. Oh my gosh, I forget. Stopper, my mom will shoot, but he was just the producer on that. I just, while you guys were talking and I started going through everything, I'm like, wow, okay. So that's just my take, is I feel like Reitman gives them more of the frame, and Reiner is very more like setting the shot and saying, okay, this is where we're working. I
can believe that.
Right? Like, and I'm not saying one technique is better than the other. It's just something that I noticed, and I'll shut up now. Except I got to ask you guys how you want to vote.
Right.
So let's do it. Gabe. I think this one, this is one of the categories that's a little tougher for me. I think I'm going to go with Rob Reiner and The American President.
All right. Andrew.
For some of the shots and the way that he pulled them off, I think I'm going to go with The American President as well.
All right. Tom?
I'll go American President.
And Kyle?
The American President.
Oh my. While watching television at Camp David in The American President, there's a very brief clip of North from 1994, also directed by Rob Reiner, a movie that was voted the worst film of 1994 by Siskel and Ebert. Director Ivan Reitman cast his wife, Genevieve Robert, and son Jason Reitman as the wife and son of Vice President Nance, as he is being sworn in as president near the end of Dave. There you go.
So was Rob Reiner just sitting around going, "Suck it, Cisco"?
I'm guessing that was just, hey, look what's on TV in my movie that's doing really well. You guys,
funny.
Yeah. I
did not.
What's that?
Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say I didn't realize that Janie in American President, his assistant, was Samantha Mathis from Pump Up the Volume.
Yes. Yeah.
I did not realize that. I should look at the cast when I'm watching the show. So I'm watching the movie.
Yeah.
Wait, do you mean Samantha Mathis from Super Mario Brothers?
Was she in that too?
She was Princess Peach.
The one and the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the Mushroom Kingdom to the White House. The Samantha Mathis story.
And the revelations start trickling down.
All right.
I was wondering why she left via green pipe.
Oh my God.
Fourth and final round overall.
Yeah, that's me. So we normally talk about things like music and visual effects and little things like that. I'm sure there was probably some visual effects in here with some of the Washington things, some pretty detailed sets. I wouldn't say there was any music that I was like, you know what, I want that soundtrack on repeat. So, but the style of movie is different than something that does those cinematic type soundtracks that you ache for, and just, they bring back that memory of that movie. I would say that. So what I really want to say is kind of what Tom had alluded to earlier, and it's just, these movies have this light, this optimism to what we experience in the world. And Dave, I think, has one of the best speeches in both of these movies. Don't get me wrong, Michael Douglas's speech at the end there when he's basically telling everybody off is fantastic, but Dave's speech is a very poignant, honest, gut-wrenching, lighthearted, positive speech after, he's basically admitted that he did all this embezzlement, and, he basically shows a pure, true person and accepting, and, even apologizes to the vice president. And there's this just moment of beauty and clarity in that scene that I think delivers that hopefulness, that passion that we all look for in a person, and would think that we would look for in a president. And in mind's eye, where we are today, it's really hard, and it's really a struggle to actually see the lightness of this, and the beauty and the majesty of what both of these movies are trying to portray at this point. And it changes things. We don't live in the same America, 30 years than we were before, and it's quite amazing to see the differences. And these movies aren't real life, but that's where we take our personal opinions and our experiences, we pull them from real life and the things that are going on, and we watch these movies to get away, or we watch a movie and it relates to us in some way and connects. And it feels like, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if we would have watched these movies, it would have felt differently than what it does today. So more power to them for making these, what I would say are great movies that really give an insight to the human spirit. And they do a nice job of portraying something, I think, as Mike said earlier, of a role that is looked at as this mysterious, distant role of the president. But really, they're just human beings. They're just people. They have feelings. They fall in love. They make mistakes, and they could have a truthfulness to them, and a love still for other people around them. And I think these movies do a good job at portraying that. It's just, it bleeds more into fiction now than it does having that positivity of saying, I believe there are still people out there like this. But I know that brought everybody down, and I'm really sorry I just threw the knife into the podcast for the evening. Normally I'm not the one that does that, but
oh no, I did it earlier.
I think it's inevitable, a discussion of two movies about an American, the U.S. president. I think it's inevitable at this time for it to kind of go there.
And I think politics in general, right? Like, we tend to hold these people up to a higher standard, and we've got to face the facts that they're just like us. And normally people that, it was said earlier, that want power, it doesn't mean that it means they'll try and do what they can to get it. Right?
Yeah. And I think I think these movies, even when they came out, were maybe a little bit idealistic as far as portraying.
True.
I would agree 100%.
But it seems even more so nowadays. They almost seem naive in how they portray these people who are portraying the president of the United States. And we wish for and we hope for people like that who have integrity and they're selfless and focused and intelligent. And we hope for that in that position. I don't know if that has ever been the case. I think there are probably some American presidents that you could say fell into that category. But I think even when they came out, they were probably a bit idealistic. Mm-hmm. But in our current political climate, it seems like they're just almost ridiculously naive, and that makes me a little bit sad to think that we can't expect a person of character to be able to win the American presidency anymore. Someone who's competent and has, morals and it's just yeah. I mean, you almost kind of want actors to run. we've had a couple, well, at least one. But I don't know if that was great, but
can we at least have screenwriters write their speeches?
Yeah, have somebody, or at least have them read what was written for them. It's like, geez, so it's a little bit weird to watch these movies because it just doesn't feel realistic anymore.
Well, I think part of that, I've been thinking about this as we've been talking. I think part of that too is there was a time, 30 years ago where political discourse was a lot less virulent than it is today, right? So, of course, there have always been politicians who are scumbags. That is the nature of the beast. But it was much better hidden from the public view, and it wasn't talked about ad nauseum in a 24-hour news cycle. So, like, I can remember, dating myself here, obviously, but I can remember the Monica Lewinsky scandal, where like people were all up in a fake moral outrage and everybody was upset by this was going on. And, now we look back and that pales in comparison to the things we've seen now. But that was, a major international event, primetime news every night. And the political discourse was a lot more, we had not jumped the shark yet on that stuff. So yes, it is, portrayed in a naively positive light, and these people are given a lot of credit for being good-hearted people at their core, which I believe there are a very small amount of politicians that may fit into that group, probably less and less each day. But it also reflects a public that had not experienced the kind of political discourse we have today, right? So the average moviegoer would not be, if you did a movie where politicians talk today the way they do and released it in the 90s, people would also believe that is incredibly unrealistic because they'd never experienced anything like that before. Those things may have been said in private, but they were not public knowledge the way they are now. And we've kind of, I don't mean to make light of it, but it's kind of in the way that wrestling happened when we realized wrestling was fake,
What?
What? Yeah, sorry, Tom, to break
what kind of wrestling?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry.
I assume you're talking about like
the world's falling
Olympic.
No, yeah. Hulk Hogan is strong.
The Greco-Roman. I
Right.
assume that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, right. Once we learned that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So once you realize that this is what the real seedy underbelly of politics is like, entertainment has shifted that way. We got things like House of Cards, and now they're making biopics of Trump and all these other things. But this is pre, like Mike mentioned, pre 9/11, pre everybody being outed. everybody being the veil has been lifted and you can't go back. So I think that is, not saying that's the whole reason, but that's part of the reason these movies seem so hopelessly naive, is that we had not experienced the breaking open of the political world in front of us.
Right.
I feel like the Aaron Sorkin and Gary Ross weren't like, I think that what they really wanted to do with these movies is push us in that direction and give people some hope and some, we can head this way if we really want to. Clearly, we collectively gave them the middle finger and went in the complete opposite direction. But it is what it is.
So there is one thing while I was watching these movies, because they were done in the 90s and they were early enough that they were even pre-real internet, no social media and all that such. Mm-hmm. If we were to make these movies today, if they were to be written, I don't think they could plausibly pull off either storyline due to the amount of social media and internet access and widespread news, hiding the president with a duplicate and or even the president being able to hide that he has a girlfriend. I would think that story, both of those stories would be dramatically different if they were to try and write those today with all of the outlets that we have that leak things, that, pictures taken on social media and paparazzi everywhere and yada, yada, yada. I think it would be even more difficult to pull these off in a believable fashion.
The screenwriter would have to create some sort of technology that the government can use to wipe someone out of if they show a picture of her with the president, that needs to be wiped from the internet, or
AI,
right? AI can chase it down.
All this is AI. These were all AI
Don't
generated.
worry, sir. We have Margaret on duty, and Margaret's the AI, and it's going through and erasing anything that shows photos of them together or whatever. But the social media, the 24-hour news, it really has just made everything political. And this was back in a time where it was increasing, but not nearly at the level that it is. And I truly believe that we are all very tired of politics. We are all very tired of all the social media. We're just being, driven into the ground every day with, now you have to be mad about this, or now you have to be angry about this, because that keeps you coming back for more, right? Like they just get into that.
I can't get enough, Mike.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
And
Mike, you've said
also,
a lot of.
You're a glutton.
We're also very jaded.
Yeah, we're very jaded now. Yeah. Mike, you've said a lot of things tonight that have made you sound old, but by far the worst is naming an AI Margaret.
Margaret.
I don't know.
Ethel. I think Ethel would have been better.
I don't know why you would choose Margaret. But good Lord.
It's my love for Ray Stevens.
I think.
Don't look, Margaret.
If you want evidence that Mike doesn't work in the tech space, there you go. Right.
This reminded me of I thought the cameo with Oliver Stone.
Yeah,
I think it's related. The cameo with Oliver Stone I thought was kind of interesting in that, where he's
funny.
like, "There's a I thought, oh yeah, that's good." He's like picking up on the conspiracy, and everybody thinks he's crazy. But I think that's kind of like that was at that time the version of social media and conspiracy theories and that kind of thing.
Right.
So
well, and back then it was, newspapers, and you had the 3 networks, and CNN was kind of just new. It wasn't as big as it is now, but you had newspapers, you had the 3 major networks, and still, kind of a brand new baby in the crib 24-hour news. So all this stuff is very interesting
They-
to people. And now when we
Yeah.
watch a movie and we see politicians on it, we're like, okay, well, we're just, like one of you said, we're just waiting for the ball to drop. You know, is he going to be this horrible way, or is she going to be this horrible way?
Yeah, and I think those news sources too. I think at the time had some sort of journalistic integrity that we don't have anymore.
Right.
Now all of these outlets are owned by giant, billionaires and giant conglomerates that have an agenda. They're not there to just report the news, and they don't really care in many cases if it's true or not. They're there to make money and sell these things, and I feel like that has changed too. We feel like there was integrity in the presidency, whether there really was or not, but we felt like there was a certain level of integrity, and I think the same goes with the news media now. That integrity seems to be gone there as well.
Amazing what's
kind of
changed
tough.
in 30 years.
Oh, I know. Well, and then I was reading something the other day where most people don't get their information or their news from, like the mainstream media. They get it all through social media, Twitter. I will never call it X. It's still Twitter, because X is stupid. It's a stupid name for it. And the Twitter and the tweet thing. And Elon Musk can come to my house if he wants to, if he hates what I have to say about it. It's not X, it's Twitter. Yeah, it's going.
down.
But that's where they get their media now. That's where they get their news. They get it from social media. They get it from Twitter. They get it from TikTok. They get it from Facebook. Whatever. They don't get it from what would normally be considered kind of vetted, reliable sources.
Right. Well, the
anymore.
gatekeepers are gone, right? Like when it comes to social media, the gatekeepers are gone because there's
anybody can post news now.
Right. Well, and I mean,
Anybody.
even for that case, anyone can make a podcast just like us. We're just.
That's my point, though.
Why did they let us do this?
Anybody can do this now. It's not just specific people, which was completely different back in the 90s.
You can come to my house, too.
Yeah, you might want to watch it with that. You might have an easier time with Elon.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right, let's put it to a vote.
I hope everyone has enjoyed this podcast. You'll never be able to find any past episodes after this one. Cinesmack will just disappear for some strange reason after this.
No, it doesn't work that way.
I really apologize,
Well,
everyone.
if this is your first podcast, normally we are way more lighthearted. Good God Almighty! All right, Andrew, let's put it to a vote.
For overall, we do rewatchability as well. I could rewatch both of these movies without even thinking about it. I'm going to give my slight curve to Dave just for that awesome speech that he does at the very end. And I got to give Dave just a little bit of love because it's still a great movie.
All right. Tom.
American President.
Kyle.
Yeah, I'll never watch Dave again, I don't think. But I would watch American President just to listen to the dialogue.
All right. And Gabe.
Yeah, I enjoyed both of these movies very much, actually. I'm going to go with The American President.
All right. Former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were big fans of Dave. Clinton gave screenwriter Gary Ross a framed copy of the script, which he had autographed, writing that it was a, quote, funny, often accurate lampooning of politics, end quote. Clinton also gave Ross a picture of himself holding a Dave mug. Obama told Kevin Kline, I love watching the movie when I'm depressed because you make the job of president look so fun and so easy. The Oval Office set used in The American President was originally constructed for, you guys want to guess?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Independence Day.
I believe Tom had it right, Dave, and it was also used for The West Wing. And Anna DeVries Smith has appeared in all three productions. She was in Dave, The West Wing, and The American President. All right. While I do the maths, let's move on to our recommendations for this month. And we will start with Tom.
So I had two movies picked out, and then depending on who won the election, I was going to pick this. I was going to make my pick based on this. So I'm not going to recommend Wag the Dog. Instead, I'm going to recommend what I think is one of the best movies of the year, directed by Alex Garland. It came out, I think, like in March, but you can check it out on digital platforms and everything. But it's Civil War, starring Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney. Just for those of you who haven't seen or don't know anything about it, it is not about an actual civil war. I mean, that's where the story takes place, like a civil war within the United States. But it's really a movie about journalism and photojournalism. There's not a Republican Democratic like feud going on. It's more complicated than that, and they Alex Garland wisely just sets that stuff to the side so that he can tell this story about these journalists that are traveling through the United States in this active war zone. The movie received a lot of backlash from people who were unaware of that they were hoping to go see, Republicans and Democrats go and kill each other, but it is a much deeper, richer film for not dealing with that stuff. It's very powerful, and it's also a beautifully shot film. Alex Garland wrote and directed it, and I would definitely recommend it. One of the best movies of the year.
Great recommendation. I almost picked it, but I knew I had a feeling, so I chose something else.
Alex Garland is as close as I can get to picking a Danny Boyle movie. So since they're buds.
Well, we're going to start collecting 2 checks a month.
Yeah, I kind of ran out of Danny Boyle movies, but rest assured, I will nominate 28 years later here pretty soon.
All right, thanks, Tom. Kyle.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of really good movies in the theater lately. I think this is one that will be up for awards too. I'm choosing this one just because it has a lot more to deal with, like the power and secrecy and things like that. I saw a movie called Conclave, which has an incredible cast of actors in it, really well directed, beautifully shot. It's a I wouldn't call it a simple mystery, but it's like an intriguing. It's a religious Pope thriller, with a really interesting twist at the end. But one of my favorite parts of it is all of the various factions and opinions and sort of the deals that get made and the power brokering that goes on and all the behind the scenes you get to see when it comes time to basically elect the new pope. And I think it's Stanley Tucci in the movie at one point who says something like they want him to try to drum up support because a lot of people like him to be the new pope and he doesn't want it. And some people say that's exactly why we want you to have it, is because you don't want it, because there are some people who very obviously want it and do some very shady things to try to get it and push their agenda. And then the character that you end up wanting to root for is the one who acquiesces and says, like, I'll do it just so this guy or these people don't get it. So it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting look at that thing, and it's something that the veil has not been pulled back on in a long time, and I cannot ever remember a film about like a papal conclave. But Ralph Fiennes gives an incredible performance in it. Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, there are tons of great actors in it, and I highly recommend it.
Thanks, Kyle. The only way I'm going to watch that is if Harry becomes the Pope.
No spoilers, but you can safely watch that movie.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. That's on my list too. I haven't seen either. I want to see both Civil War and that. Gabe.
Well, I'm going to go with, it's not really, it's tough because I know you want us to try to relate these movies to the movies that we're talking about, but I didn't have any political oriented type movies that I wanted to recommend. But I did recently watch The Killer on Netflix. the new David Fincher movie. And David Fincher is one of my favorite modern directors. And I enjoyed this movie very much. And it's the kind of thing where I wouldn't mind, like, discussing it with some people to try to understand, like, the ending and like what it meant and those kinds of things. It's very kind of voiceover heavy, but I think it's key to telling this story, because otherwise it would be very, very quiet and dialogue free, and you may not really understand what's going on in the mind of the main character played by Michael Fassbender. It's very moody and dark and beautifully shot in a very David Fincher kind of way, and I found it interesting and entertaining and discussion worthy. So I would recommend The Killer.
All right, thank you.
Great movie.
Gabe. And Andrew.
Yeah, so I am actually going to recommend a movie that is relatively new as well. It's a little less political, but is political at the same time. That actually has Kate Winslet and Andy Samberg playing side by side, which is just a very odd pairing of actors, but turns out to be an incredible movie. This movie is based on a true story about a Vogue magazine photographer that goes during World War II to the front lines as one of the very first females that's ever allowed on the front lines to take pictures back to the American people to see what was actually happening. And this story is about the woman named Lee Miller, and she actually was one of the very first people that discovered and brought light to the fact that there were concentration camps that were happening during World War II. The movie's just called Lee. Kate Winslet is absolutely brilliant. Andy Samberg plays a very serious role and is fantastic in this movie. And it is a weird pairing, hearing it on paper, but watching it on screen, it is absolutely spot on and incredible. So highly recommended, and that's Lee.
Yeah, I totally forgot that was coming out. Sorry, Tom.
No, I was going to say there, Lee and Civil War, I think, would probably make a potential good matchup later on, because they talk about Lee Miller in Civil War as one of the pioneers of war photography.
War photography. Yeah, that would be awesome, Tom.
She's a fascinating character. Like
she is.
Yes.
Lee Miller is she is poignant young lady.
Yes.
Her life is very fascinating.
Well, we talked about idealism and what we think we would want to see in our political figures. And I can think of nothing more that My Perfect President. And it comes from 1997, so pre 9/11, but it's President Ford in Air Force One. I love Air Force One, directed by Wolfgang Peterson. If you haven't seen it, where have you been? You need to watch it. It also has probably my favorite actor ever, Gary Oldman, playing the yin to Harrison Ford's yang, and it is brilliant. It's a lot of fun, and it won't be as heavy as our discussion was tonight, but check out Air Force One, and if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. It deserves a rewatch.
Get off my plane.
That's right. Love that movie. All right.
Can I tell my Rob Reiner story real quick?
Yes, go ahead. Yes. Tell your Rob Reiner story.
So, 2004, John Kerry's running for president, and I find out that not John Kerry, but Martin Sheen and Rob Reiner were going to be at the Cedar Rapids Art Museum for like a campaign event. And so I ran to Blockbuster and I bought a copy of American President, because I know it's the only two things they worked on together. And I ran over there, and the line for Rob Reiner was a little bit shorter, so I kind of muscled my way to the front of the group and handed it to him with my silver Sharpie, and he signed the disc. And he stopped. He goes, "Hey, did you know Martin Short's in this?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Did you know he's right over there?" And I was like, yeah, that's why I picked this one. He's like, "Oh, you should have him sign it too." And I was like, well, "Thank you, Mr. Reiner. I appreciate it." So then I went over and I met Martin Sheen.
Martin Short.
Martin Short. That'd have been a different movie.
Ruined my story. I met Martin Sheen, and he is absolutely he is just as tall as I am, which is not much. So anyway, I have a copy
Martin
of American
Sheen
President. Martin Sheen is he's only like 5'4". He's very short.
Surprisingly, Martin Short is much taller than you would expect.
It's much taller.
God, why did I had a really cool story about this.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's cool though.
Yeah, I want to get Michael Douglas and Michael J. Fox to sign it, but time's running out, so I need to get on that.
Yep. You need to track down Catherine Zeta-Jones and be like, "Miss Zeta-Jones, I need your hubby.
I need your help
for me."
I want to get Samantha. I want to get Samantha Mathis to sign it now.
Yeah.
Yep. Along with a copy of Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say pump up the volume, but okay.
Pump up the volume, maybe, man.
You got to go through Dennis Hopper if you want to get to Samantha Mathis.
Yeah.
He's the final boss.
I mean, he was.
All right, let's poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is the American President.
That was kind of a landslide, 11-2. But once again, no, just because one beats the other one doesn't mean that Dave is a horrible movie. I actually really enjoy Dave.
What was the score?
14-2. I can't read the screen correctly. Yep.
Holy cow.
You and Andrew.
14-2?
14-2, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I think sometimes the score is not really representative of how good the movies are.
Correct.
You know, we got to pick one. They're both really good movies, really fun to watch. So sometimes the score seems more lopsided than it should.
All right. Well, please leave us a review on whatever podcatching service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And if you want to listen to an unedited version of the show, you can catch us live on Twitch whenever we record an episode. Just like these fine people, right? Just like these fine people did tonight listening to us. In December, our hearts will attempt to grow 3 sizes as the Grinch takes on How the Grinch Stole Christmas. For Gabe, Andrew, Tom, Kyle, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Hail to the chief, he's the one we all say hail to. We all say hail because he keeps himself so clean. He's got the power, that's why he's in the shower.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play. Like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.